Hello, it's Scott Manley here, and I'm just doing a quick follow-up with some previous aircraft things you've seen. First of all, we had the B9 Aerospace pack, and I had been using Ferrum Aerospace Research plugin, which is all great except that apparently the way it's saved in the game, the versions don't have the mappings to the control surfaces, so you have to go in and manually do things such as removing pitch from your rudders and removing the yaw commands from all of these, I guess. Yeah, this needs to lose the yaw, and this needs to lose the yaw. And so that should be a little more controllable. Another thing that was also missing from this, or I was not aware of, is there is a gizmo attached to this, which is the equivalent of an RCS unit which uses air, intake air. So this should actually make it more controllable when we're in vertical flight. So let's turn these things up and then hit the buttons and see if we can actually fly things. Are we ready this time? Ooh, yeah. A little more actually. Yeah, we're all totally vertical. Ready? And we'll turn on the stabilizer as well. Close this down. Ooh, excellent. And then let's guide this thing forwards a little. Look at that. See the RCS stuff firing there? Just pitch forwards. Let's just pitch back now so we can actually get some control. Turn the RCS off. Look, I've got an aircraft and it's actually stable in forward flight, mostly. Let's turn this off. Oh, no, let's turn this back on. Okay, it may not be so stable. I suspect that we have the traditional problem of the center of lift being forwards of the center of mass. And if I try to turn this thing, it will not want to turn, or it will want to flip the F out all over the place. Okay, at least we're getting over the top here. And let's rotate. Oh dear, 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 dear. I don't know if I'm going to be landing this thing vertically at all. I somehow doubt it. A lot of people were saying, yes, you got to use caps lock. Honestly, it doesn't matter, right? Seriously? I was trying to crash these things. But yeah, I really like the fact that you have these new parts that are... Wow, this thing is really unstable. Ah, come on, let me right click. Let me right click on this thing that is moving around there. Look at that. It's an exhaust port which uses the power of air. And why am I going vertical again? Okay. We should just kind of let this thing slow down and I'll try and keep control of it. Why is it wanting to go up large scale stall, but I'm going mostly forwards. Okay. Let's... Whoa, wow. Yeah, this thing is horrendously unstable. But let's how can I pull this? How can I transition to vertical? Whoa, I'm trying to transition to like VTOL mode for landing again. Okay. This is totally like picking up ridiculous speed. Look, it's stalling and it's moving at like ridiculous speeds. That's okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, turn up again. Right, okay, we're gonna turn on stabilizers. I'm gonna try and go horizontal, and you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna turn these things into vertical mode because otherwise we ain't gonna be able to land this thing. I have to say, I think the VTOLs that I made with my own stock parts, you remember a long time ago before we had intakes and stuff to worry about? Whoa. I made this VTOL that I took all the way to Lathe. I cannot fly this thing without any stall happening at all. It's just like it wants to stall regardless of what happens. Okay, I'm gonna turn on RCS. Oh, no, 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 no. Okay, let's... Yeah, give me some thrust. Give me some thrust. Okay, that's not gonna work so well. I'm wondering actually if the wing being that far forward makes it easier to transition back to horizontal flight. Because really, that's what I want to do here. I want to pitch up, I'm just gonna tell that thing to hold that position. Come on. Oh, no, no, no. There we go. We're just gonna hold the nose up. And just see. You should probably put the gear down, because you know what? Gear will save me from even the worst situations. I proved it. I'm sure of it. Yeah, I actually had planned a whole bunch of other things for the last couple of days. I did film some amazing, a very, very awesome individual. I got him playing Kerbal Space Program, and this will become evident at some point, but not just yet. I was doing another part to my asteroid research video. Unfortunately, I spent all this effort building a really nice spacecraft to intercept and, you know, put a transponder, study the target asteroid, and then ran out of Delta V after flying it for like 2 hours, which was just really disappointing. I thought I had more than enough, but it doesn't always work out the way that you want. Look at that, this is doing okay. More thrust, more thrust, more thrust. More thrust. Okay, look, it's gonna stall onto the ground. Hey, look at that! Almost horizontal, or almost vertical takeoff. It's just braking very slowly. So these things aren't automatically death traps, right? You just need to baby them, and you have to understand the features. You have to read the manual, and I'm really bad about that. Anyway, let's go and look at some other stuff that I've got sitting around. Anyway, if you remember the Operation Credible Sport version, which wasn't perfect, but yeah, there was a bunch of outtakes, and there was some interesting ones which I didn't actually include in the original video because I thought they deserved mention on their own, as in, I saved the footage for a rainy day. So this attempt to land in the vehicle assembly building didn't quite work, and then the engines kind of overdid things, and then I lost an engine and part of my wing and some control surface, and so I figured, what the hell, I'll just, you know, fire up the engines again and try to take off, at which point I managed to lose another engine, neatly balancing out the aircraft. Although it has less than half the thrust that it usually has, it is more than enough to get back into the air. Despite missing a significant chunk of the wing, it is still very pilotable. In fact, it flies just as well as any previous version. You'll notice this is the one with the struts on the tail, which might explain why the tail never actually fell off during that very heavy landing. Regardless, it still is quite controllable, and we're gonna just demonstrate this by threading the needle between these two buildings and an aircraft which is really not designed for flying this close. Watch this. Oh, just made it and no more. This was great, but that was nothing compared to this. So again, we're going to try and land on the launch pad this time. You know, launch pad is slightly bigger, I think, than the vehicle assembly building. So yeah, set myself up, air brakes on, firing the retros, and touching down kinda, losing both my engines on the end, and in fact I lose almost half my wing. So I'm down to 2 engines and about 1.5 wings. Will this thing be able to escape from the soccer stadium according to the plan? Well, let's find out. Here we go, rockets, jets, everything, and we get airborne! And it isn't a complete mess, it actually remains airborne. I was frankly flabbergasted, but miracles do happen. So perhaps we could have completed the mission had this been the case. Now, the only problem, of course, is the thing does want to roll to the left all the time. And you can add in trim to avoid, you know, to control that a little, but but I'm just flying this thing manually with the keyboard still. Yeah, it turns out that a lot of people who are good at flying flight simulators and real aircraft are not so good at flying things with a keyboard, I've found. And I'm sure that's Amy's excuse. But seriously, the question is, we've got this thing airborne, and it does produce lift, it can gain altitude, it just has a nasty habit of rolling to the left. Can I land this thing? Well, hold on to your hold on to the person next to you, You know, fasten your seatbelts, put your tray tables to the upright position. We are coming into land. And just watch this. We're just gliding in here. We've turned off all engine power, which could be problematic, but we really don't want to be going too fast. So we're just going to kind of glide in here, and I'm just manually controlling the roll. You see me hitting the roll key all the time in conjunction with a pitch. We don't have a runway. We're not aiming for a runway because that would probably make things... That would probably be pushing my luck, let's say. Here we go. Getting close. Just dropping to over 100... Under 100 meters per second now. That's 300 miles an hour. That's... Whoa! No, not quite now. Not quite now. Let's... No! Ah! No! Hey! Look at that. He's totally on the ground. He's totally on the ground. This is going to work wonders, huh? Yeah, so now we're down to slightly less wings and only one engine. I think at this point it's time to, you know, count my chickens and say goodbye. And so now we're into just comedy crashes. This was another heavy landing, let's say, where things didn't quite go to plan. We'd already fired our retros and everything and had given up on landing. So yeah, we lose the tail, and so we brake just in time to see it flying past us. Heading very nicely straight into the ocean. I like the way that it's kind of balanced on its two wheels there. It continues. Yes, I love the physics in Kerbal Space Program. They never cease to amaze me and amuse me. And of course, a little quick demonstration that yes, I can in fact land this on the tiny runway here. This is me again doing the braking before actually landing, but the descent speed is about 5 meters per second, which isn't terrible, let's say, but it is kind of heavy. But look, total landing, you know, the actual area under which I touched the surface was very short. So, one other thing I wanted to show you is a mod which I've previously used on my epic EVA voyage from Gilly back to Kerbal. This is the Vanguard Technologies parachute pack, and in there I can equip a parachute. So I now have a Kerbal wearing a parachute in the cargo bay of the Stragatsky. What happen next? Oh yeah, he's gonna be a Kerbal paratrooper. So yeah, we're gonna fire this thing up to speed, being very careful, remembering the trick that we learned to avoid touching any controls because it will typically make it lose control or stall on liftoff. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work that well, and I start to, well, I lose a couple of engines, but I do manage to get it into the air. That's nice. Now the question is, can we actually fly it having missed 2 engines? Well, you know, I've been missing 2 engines before and managed to fly it. I was also missing a wing. Granted, you know, this is a different aircraft, but let's press forwards and see if we can get ourselves up to parachute altitude. Now notice that when I pitch too far, I'm getting major stalling on those wings. It happens rather easily in this thing, and so I have to mess around a lot with the trim to try and make sure that I'm gaining vertical speed but not stalling. And you'll also notice as time goes on, my velocity is just continuing to drop and I start to yaw to the left. Despite my best efforts, what I really should have done was, you know, isolate those engines and shut them down so at least the thrust would be balanced. But honestly, you know, if we have a stricken aircraft, then we have the perfect demonstration of the Kerbal parachute engine, parachute system, don't we? Yeah, now I'm really starting to yaw to the left, and at this point things really start going wrong, and I stall on one side, it just wants to flip over. Yeah, I'm like at 45 degrees to my velocity vector, and I just literally roll over because I lose wing lift on the left wing. So I open the cargo bay door, and my Kerbal ejects deploys his parachute, and he can only watch in horror and somewhat in admiration of the beautiful spirograph style patterns that it is leaving in the sky. I'm sure the pilots who are trying to control this thing appreciate the work of art, the ephemeral work of art they are creating in the skies over Kerbal. The white silhouetted against the blue of this ocean, and the plane-shaped splash that it leaves behind. Yes, he has survived and has witnessed a sight that not many can appreciate, because they tend to be, flying these things at the time. Yeah, he's quite happy at his narrow escape. But you don't actually need a proper, to do that. You don't need cargo bay thing. You can actually... the pack includes a proper ejection system which will automatically confer the parachutes on any Kerbals that use it. I've bound this to the abort system. There he goes out the back, and I just deploy the parachute. There's a semi-deploy and there's a full deploy, and he has escaped certain doom once again, because of course otherwise if he hadn't jumped out I would have had to land that, and we all know how that turns out. I'm Scott Manley, fly safe.